So this is embarrassing. I have a new microphone which I'm testing out at the moment, and there's a little mute button on it, and I press the mute button before I hit record. And I do apologize. That's probably part of the issue there. Now it will work. So good morning. I don't normally do a live stream on the weekends, certainly not on the main channel, but there's something that's happened in the news that has made me feel like we need to actually address this now, and we need to make sure that what we're doing is fair to everything else that's happening in this industry, because there is a bit of a problem with YouTube. There is a bit of a problem with influencers versus journalists, and where we fit as a channel and where we market ourselves, where we are viewed by other people. And I want to have a real, frank, honest discussion with you about it. So you'll know for a while, if you've been watching this channel, that we don't get a huge number of car reviews to do. We tend not to go to an awfully large number of launch events, and there are multiple reasons for that, which I'm going to get to in this video. But there's also the matter of being missed out on events. So very often there will be an event where we don't know about it until after it's happened. We are not invited and we're not aware of it. And then we look like we're not doing our job properly when someone turns around and says, oh, well, so-and-so was at that event. Where were you guys? And obviously that can create some animosity. It can create some frustration. And for you all out there, if you're watching this channel, you're donating to this channel, I wouldn't be surprised if some of you are worrying and wondering why we are not doing our job properly. And so, as I say, there's been a news item that has popped up. A lot of tech bloggers and journalists and influencers are talking about it, and those are separate and distinct categories. And I want to make it very clear that there are some issues that exist in the world right now when it comes to product reviews, product placement, advertorials, as well as who actually gets access to these products. Let's cut to the story that is currently being discussed. I was made aware of it both by a Telegram group of professional video editors that I'm happy to be in, but also by Linus Tech Tips. I watch Linus Tech Tips. I love what they do, most of what they do. I don't agree with everything they do, but they have done some great things over the years, Linus and the rest of the team. And I love that channel because it is not just Linus. It is an entire team, and he's built up a brand around the company that is more than just him. And that's what I like, and that's one of the things that I aspire to at Transport Evolve. Something that I can retire from in the future. Continue. I don't want it to be just me. I don't want it to be just I don't want it to be just about me. I want it to be about what we offer as a company, which is insight, hopefully, and commentary and news reporting on the latest in the world of cleaner, greener, safer, and smarter vehicles. We also want to cover all of the clean energy technology and give people the information that they need to become informed buyers, informed people who go out and put their hard-earned cash into something that is right for them. Not necessarily the thing that's trendy, not necessarily the thing that other people are doing, but the thing that is right for them. So apparently right now we are having some streaming issues, which I don't know a whole lot about. So I do apologize if it is an issue right now. We are looking into getting the network upgraded. We are looking to get Starlink. Some days when we stream, we have 20 megabits per second up and 20 megabits per second down. So it should be fine for what this is, which I think is a 720, maybe a 1080p stream. If it's not, I do apologize. It might just be because it's the weekend. And if it's really poor, then we will stop. and then maybe I will record this. We can go out and do this again. But I wanted this to be a live stream because I wanted to have that conversation with you. And I wanted to talk to you guys directly about this because I think it's something that affects everybody. Without further ado, I'm 5 minutes in. Let's talk now about Nvidia. So Nvidia has said this week, it sent one of its team sent an email to Hardware Unboxed saying, yeah, we're not going to send you the GeForce Founders Edition GPU review samples anymore because you are focusing on something that we don't want you to focus on. That's what it boils down to. So Hardware Unboxed has been doing the usual reviews of graphics cards as it has done for many years, and it focuses more on rasterization rather than ray tracing. Ray tracing being the new hotness that Nvidia is pushing, and rasterization being kind of an older technology. Rasterization obviously is, as I understand it, and I'm not a tech journalist, is far more backwards compatible, and it is something that is still very much used today, especially if you're not talking about AAA gaming titles. So kind of AAA meaning the really top tier games that have just come out, things like like the new Assassin's Creed game, for example. That is considered a AAA title. Whereas if you're playing indie games, that's not a AAA title very often. I'm making huge generalizations, but the sentiment in the email that was sent to Hardware Unboxed was, yeah, you don't understand what we're trying to do. And it was very condescending. It was very nasty, in fact, in the way it was worded, and basically said, we are not sending you review units anymore because you don't agree with what we're trying to do, or you don't understand what we're trying to do, and therefore we're not sending you review units. And we have customers and we have gamers and we have professionals who understand what we're doing and support us, and we're going to give them, we're listening to them, we're not going to listen to you, and we don't want you to be able to review our samples anymore. And they actually said, it is very clear from your community commentary that you do not see the same, you do not see things the same way that we gamers and the rest of the industry do. And they also said they will revisit their decision, quote, should your editorial direction changed. And it has caused a major stir because obviously gaming and graphics cards is far bigger than electric vehicles. Let me be completely honest here. Electric vehicles are a tiny, tiny topic compared to the entirety of the gaming market. Sorry, I needed to have a sip of coffee there. And so it got me thinking, and I was talking to some friends, as I say, in this professional video Telegram group, and was talking about why I'm not surprised. And the reason that I'm not surprised is that the internet, YouTube, Twitter, social media, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, has become so focused on the cult of celebrity and the cult of new and shiny that we've forgotten kind of some of the foundational principles of what I would consider real world journalism. We live in an age of fake news. We live in a world of alternative facts. And so it's become really easy for companies to pick and choose who they let review units, because then they can control what the reviews are. And a great example of this is that we've actually got to a point where we've devalued reviews. We've devalued the process of reviewing. Reviewing is now a cheap thing that is easy to do, that's easy to replicate. And you only have to see that if you look at something like Amazon, okay? So if you go onto Amazon and you look at something on Amazon that you want to buy, and it's something that's maybe not mainstream, but something that's a little bit quirky and a little bit unusual, maybe electronics, for example. You'll go on there and you'll see reviews for units. And very often, those reviews are not written by people who've actually purchased the device and used it, but rather people who are being paid to buy the product and review it and give it a favorable review. And that skews our understanding of what truth is, and it skews our trust of reviews and reviewers in general. I was looking a couple of weeks ago for something online, and I discovered that it was really difficult for me to find the thing that I was wanting to buy. And I can't for the life of me remember what it was now, but it was something that was niche enough that not everybody was wanting to buy it, but available enough that there were multiple cheap-ass copies from China. And I spent probably as long trying to weed out which products were cheap and nasty copies and had generic, poorly written reviews versus going with the brand name that I knew and trusted. And in the end, I think I went with the brand name that I knew and trusted only because I know that that brand, even though it had a lower review, its copies from China had honest reviews. And the Chinese products did not. And it was very clear by reading those reviews that they were not honest. What does that have to do with Nvidia saying they're not going to send a review unit to someone they view as being negative towards their product? Well, I'm about to tell you. And it's also tying in with us here at Transport Evolved. It also ties in with me as a creator and a journalist, which I consider myself to be. And that is, reviewing a product should be about actually being fair to that product, discussing its positives and its negatives, and then maybe, if you have time, coming up with a conclusion, which is the standard thing, right? If you're doing a review using traditional journalistic principles, you might give a background to the unit, which is what we try and do. You might say what's new, what's different, what you like, what you don't like. You're going to couch the information that you give. So, for example, if I'm driving a new car and I only get to drive that car 100 miles, then I'm going to say, look, I've only had this car a day. I've only driven it 100 miles, but so far I'm impressed. Or I've only had this car for 24 hours. I've gone to the shops and back, and so far I don't like it. But I understand that in order to get a better understanding of this vehicle, I'm going to have to drive it for a week and give it a real good, thorough going over. And at the end of that week, I might still hate this thing, or I might like it. And I'm going to be really, something that you guys might not even pick up on sometimes in our reviews is that when we do get a vehicle to review, very often I will get in a car and my initial thoughts on that vehicle will be diametrically opposed to what I think at the end of the week. A good example of that is the 2019 Kia e-Niro, which I reviewed in March 2019. I actually reviewed it. I don't talk about this much. I reviewed this car in March 2019, but the review itself wasn't published until much later that year because the day we were due to hand it back, my daughter did something very stupid and dangerous, and it caused a lot of issues for a long time after. If you know me personally, you'll know what I'm talking about. It involved my car. So I did not publish that review immediately. And that actually gave me some extra time to think about the review process and what I actually thought about the Kia e-Niro. And despite having filmed that review at the end of my week, and I should point out here, normally car journalists get a car for a week. If they get it longer than a week, it's generally called a long-term review, and that will be a couple of months. But normally it's a week-long review. You live with a car, you drive it everywhere, you do your shopping in it, you take the kids to school if you've got them, you go to the whatever. You do all of your daily driving duties in that vehicle. And I should also remind you that most automotive journalists are either freelancers and work from home, or they work from home anyway, because you don't have to be in an office to do this job. And it's obviously easier to be, a lot of automotive journalists actually live in the country because we like driving. So it's not a problem to live out in the country. Anyway, sidetrack. When I got that Kia e-Niro, initially I hated it. When I moved it, I had to move it. We still had the office downtown in Portland at the time, and I had to move it. I can't remember why I had to move it, but I had to move it from one parking space to another. And my initial reaction was, I hate this thing. It's horrible. Later that day, I had to drive it again, and I'm like, okay, still not 100% sure about this. By the end of the week, I thought it was one of the best electric vehicles I'd driven. And so that is very different to this new product has just been handed to me and I have to tell you about it in 30 seconds, which again, sometimes happens. Someone in the chat said EV Man just uploaded a video and it looks like he had the car for less than 6 hours, maybe 4. And that sometimes does happen. If you're on a launch event, if you are going to a launch event and you get a chance to drive that vehicle, very often you get less than an hour behind the wheel, sometimes 2. And that's happened to me before. So how launch events tend to work is you get flown out somewhere. They'll put you in a car, they'll fly you out. Let's put you in a car. They put you on a plane, fly you out to wherever the launch is happening. This is in pre-COVID world, obviously. They'll put you up in a nice hotel. You'll go out. Everyone arrives generally in the evening, unless it's a local one, in which case you might arrive that same day, drive the car and go home. But if it's a kind of a larger event, you'll fly in, arrive that afternoon or evening. You'll get some free time to set yourself up in the hotel, finish your day's work, because a lot of us work on the way. I mean, if you sit with me on a plane, I'm the worst person to sit next to on a plane because I'm constantly working. And that evening you'll go out for a meal, generally with the rest of the journalists that are there. You'll get to chat with the team who are responsible for that launch event. Sometimes they'll bring the engineers along. So you get to chat with the engineers in a more informal setting. And then the next day you get up early. You normally have a briefing somewhere between 7 and 9 a.m., depending on how sadistic the automaker is feeling and how much they want to pack into the day. You'll get a press briefing where they go through all of the product details. It's basically you sit there and listen, and then you will get in the car and you get paired up with another journalist normally. I think I've done like 2 or 3 car launches where I got my car on my own, which is, I prefer those because I'm not great around people, which is one of the reasons we'll come to later as to why we don't get a huge number of review units. You get in the car with somebody generally that you already know and respect. You get paired up, you go out for a drive. One of you drives for a bit and then you switch over and the other one drives. Now, some car companies are getting better about journalists, influencers, and YouTubers, and they'll go, okay, you're going to be filming, so we'll either give you a car on your own or we will allow you to have extra time for filming. That doesn't mean that you get extra time with the car per se, but they'll go, okay, we'll build a buffer into your day. So while the print journalists are, sitting there having a nice meal, you can scarf your food down and then go straight out, and you can spend some extra time filming, because obviously for filming purposes, you have to set stuff up. You have to stand in front of the car. You do your pieces to camera. You have to make sure everything works. So, and someone says, I bet a lot of this is totally long and boring to do. Yeah, it is. And I don't want to kind of lift the curtain too much, but some of the conversations that you have at car launches are very interesting. Some car launches you go to, all they want to talk about is the car, but sometimes you can go to car launches and actually have a really good human connection with the team. Generally, I would argue they are better ones because you get to find out more about the people at the company and what they're doing. The really good car companies and the really trusting car companies will even have, off the record conversations with you. And if you are with a group of traditional journalists, off the record conversations are valuable to us because they allow us to build relationships with the teams at those car companies, which is useful in the future if we need a quote or something. But also it gives you a better idea of where that car company is going. And it's this kind of is one of the big differences between journalists, which, as I say, I consider myself, and influencers or vloggers who are just wanting the hits. They just want the latest bit of sexy news. And so what's happened is you actually get less of the insider conversation these days. Companies are holding things much closer to their chests than they used to. And what you end up with is kind of a very corporate company feel, and sometimes you don't even get access to the engineers anymore. And that is really frustrating for me, and it's really frustrating for my colleagues that I've spoken to. And I want to make it absolutely clear here, I'm not trying to talk to them for them. I'm not trying to kind of put words in their mouths, but I know that it's a fairly common feeling in the industry. And this transition has happened over the last couple of years. It's happened as influencers and vloggers have become more important and journalists have been demoted. Partly because as a society, we don't value journalism in the same way that we used to. We've got used to the concept of fake news and alternative facts, and I'm not going to even delve into that because that is going to lead us down into the path of politics. I want to try and keep this ahead of that. And so I think that, this Nvidia example, I am starting to see in the EV world, in the car world as a whole, and it's happened a lot lately. If you are a close friend of mine, you might have heard me note this year that I've been really frustrated that we have missed out on some really big events. So we missed out on the Nissan Aria thing. We've missed out on the ID4 drive. We've missed out on the Mustang event this year. And plenty of other things. And we reach out to car companies and say, hey, is there a car coming to the area on a press fleet we can drive? And somebody at the company says no. And then a week or two later, I find out that another journalist local to me has had access to that car. And then kind of you go back and go, hey, you said there wasn't one. And they go, well, no, there isn't anymore. There was, and now there isn't. And you kind of go, well, I work in this region. You know where I live. You know what our beat is, and we are, I think, very often not given access to vehicles. And I wanted to discuss why that is. And I think it is because so that there's kind of a pecking order, and it starts with your traditional automotive journalists who work for the big organizations, so the Road and Track, the Motor Trend, all of these other big names that are well known and are print media. Then there are kind of websites, the vlogs, the news sites. Sorry, not the vlogs, the news sites. And the news sites are generally run by large companies, even with the EVs. So you might not know this, but Inside EVs is part of a much larger network of motoring websites. It was purchased a couple of years ago. It's part of a larger group. Green Car Report is part of a larger internet vertical publishing company. Even Electrek is owned by a company that owns 9to5Mac, 9to5 whatever. There's other tech sites that they earn. And so Transport Evolved and people like Fully Charged and Transport Evolved, they are the only two that I can really think of right now that approach things from a traditional journalistic standpoint, are not owned by anybody. So we have to stand on our own 2 feet. And when you're not owned by a larger group, it means it's harder to get exposure because those companies are taking a punt on a smaller potential audience. So that's the first thing. The second thing is something that Doug DeMuro has touched on in the past, and that is that YouTube is a wonderful platform. If you are wanting to learn stuff, you can go on YouTube and learn stuff. If you are wanting to be entertained, you can go on YouTube and you can be entertained. And if you have a weird fetish or weird interest, or you want to surround yourselves with conspiracy theories, well, guess what? YouTube is the place for that as well. It is such a wide and varied place that it's very difficult to take the term YouTuber and make that into some kind of cogent entity that makes it easier for PR firms and media types to understand. There are very few traditional journalists who are there are very few traditional journalists who go into YouTube as we have done. And I consider myself a traditional journalist partly because I did train with, I used to work for a magazine in the UK my career has been amorphous, but I trained as a classical musician. Before I even went to music college, I used to work at my local radio station as a helper on the weekend. That's how I really got into broadcasting. We nearly had a TV show, Kate Morton and I, in 2004, I think it was, doing up classic cars. So I've always had that background and that interest, but until about 2008, 2010, sometime around then, I was still officially a full-time music teacher and professional musician. I did this on the side, and then I switched and made my hobby my job and my job my hobby. But having trained with Future Publishing in Bath in Bristol for a while, and then having worked with the guys at Green Car Reports under the truly wonderful John Volker, who I still consider a very dear friend and mentor to this day, I learned my craft in those two roles. And so I learned kind of more traditional journalistic techniques. And so I try and approach that with what's the story, what's the angle, what are both sides of this, what can we take from this? And that's not how a lot of YouTube is carried out. So you have Doug DeMuro and a couple of other YouTubers who are trying to do sensible, for the most part, but entertaining car reviews. And they are getting clumped together with influencers who have no intention of being fair to the product, but just want the views, just want the lols, just the hits. And this is something that didn't really hit me until this week. So as those of you who know, I purchased, I put a $100 deposit down this week on an Aptera. I've wanted an Aptera ever since 2006 when I first saw one, 2006, 2007. I wanted one. I was very disappointed when the company folded. I wasn't surprised, but I was very disappointed when the company originally folded. And it folded not because of the founders, but because of the management team they brought in before they left. And now the original founders are back. They are in control. I don't think they have any intention of handing over the reins like they did last time. And there's been improvements. And one of the things that I like about Aptera is that they are supporting of right to repair and want to try and make their ecosystem as open and as friendly to right to repair as absolutely possible. That's one of the reasons why I decided to personally buy a reservation for that car. And I made that video talking about the company. I tried to be as absolutely fair and critical as I needed to be about the company. I tried to be unbiased in that. And then at the end, I was like, hey, and I'm getting one. Or at least I hope I'm going to get one. And I couched that with, I still don't know if this car is going to make it to market, but I put my money where my mouth is. And I put that video up. That video has gained, I think, 80 plus views at this point as of recording this, partly because I put in the title, it's back and we just ordered one, or something like that. That clickbaity title, along with the content of that, pushed our viewer count through the roof. We have earned back from ad revenue that $100 I put down on that car several times at this point. I want to be completely honest with you about that. And it made me realize people are no longer interested in, a lot of people are not interested in the actual reporting. They're more interested in the, oh, look, new and shiny. And that makes me sad. That makes me really sad, because we're in a point now where in the automotive world, we are now like the tech industry, where if you try and be completely unbiased about something and try and give you the facts, and you try and be honest about how you feel about a product, because let's be honest, even as a journalist, everybody has implicit bias. Everybody has a bias of some description. Everybody has an implicit bias. I have an implicit bias, okay? My implicit bias is founded by the idea of right to repair is one of my core values. Open source is one of my core values. Affordability is one of my core values. And honesty from car companies is one of my core values. And QA Library, you just asked me a question about the Aptera. I'm not ignoring you. It is a composite body, but I don't want to really go into the Aptera here. I want to focus on the Nvidia situation and how that applies to the EV world. So we are at a point where we have, these products that are coming to market, cars in our case, where companies are gatekeeping who has access to them. And the people that they are gatekeeping, I'm starting to see trends. You have to be the archetypal car person. That generally means, and I should also clarify here, this is not true in England, and I regret moving to America for that reason. I don't regret moving to America. I love living in America. I think it's a beautiful country. There are many wonderful people here, as well as some not so wonderful people. And the house that we have now, we have a 2,000 square foot home on a third of an acre. We would just not even be able to have, even now, afforded that in the UK. So we've got land, we've got chickens, we're able to grow our own stuff. We wouldn't have that in the UK. And there are political reasons why the UK is not a good place for my family right now, which I don't want to go into here. But the thing I do regret when moving it from the UK to the US is how different media are treated. In the UK, it's very much more, I would say the UK automakers are much more respectful of journalists as a whole, and they're more respectful of specialist niche journalists, which I consider myself. EV Man is one of them as well. There are plenty of wonderful people who are in James Caton Florence. Again, fantastic, very niche market. James Cook, very niche market. And they know their stuff, and these automakers have understood that, and they're okay to have people along for the ride who might not be traditional in their journalism background, but they are producing fairly honest journalism. That's the way it works. They're being closer to real journalists than a lot of the American influencers that I'm seeing. People who are building up this massive, massive following because they're literally telling their audience what that audience already wants to hear. And I don't want to be that person. I don't want people to always agree with me. I want to challenge people. I want people to use what I say to challenge their own opinions and then to come up with new ones. And I want pleasant discourse, not swearing at me or telling me that, I'm terrible. I want facts. I want everything to be based on facts and logic, not this is new and shiny and isn't this brilliant. So I'm just going to take another drink here because my throat's getting a bit parched. So where does what I've just said apply to car reviews? Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I am not your traditional car person. And you just have to look at the demographics for my channel to tell you that, for our channel. I think we're at like 97% male, 3% female, or maybe 96 male, and 4% female. But very much heavily male-driven. Middle-aged, categorically. And I'm not even middle-aged. A lot of our audience are actually a little younger than that, but I am 41. I am aware that I am not the most camera-friendly person out there, and I don't really care. I'm not somebody who spends a lot of money doing their hair. I don't wear fancy clothes. I'm not putting on that. I'm not putting on that face. I try and be, what you see is what you get. And I know that when I'm on screen and that when I am at an event, I do turn on that persona of Nikki. And if you know me personally, you know that I'm not necessarily as confident and as forward-thinking and bouncy as I might make out on screen. I'm actually quite a shy person, quite neurotic, and I'm not really a go-getter, which means that having a YouTube channel does sometimes mean that I have to do things that I don't feel comfortable doing because I just want the end result, which is more people driving electric cars, more people being smart about their energy usage and making the world a better place. I don't hide from the fact that I am doing this because I'm a car person, I'm a car nerd, I'm a petrol head, I love cars, but I'm also an environmentalist, and that's kind of where these two things meet at Transport Evolved. A lot of car companies don't look at us and view us as serious traditional media because we don't have enough viewers. Even though we're pushing 1 million uniques this month, we're going to get more than a million views this month. We had 300 and some thousand views last week, just last week. That was a good week, though. We are not a traditional media outlet, and so car companies do not view us as such. And a lot of people don't look at us because we're not flashy and we're not kind of punching you in the face with content and thumbnails and everything else. And part of the issue with that is that car companies no longer are run. The car company media teams are being increasingly farmed out to PR firms who tend to be full of younger people, in their 20s who are looking for a very specific type of person, and that's normal. You would want to see a similar kind of presenter, and you'd want to see a similar kind of someone who has similar views to you. You'll feel drawn to that person more than an old fart like me. So I know, good mic, bad cam. Kamikazu, I hope I'm saying that right. In case you don't know, I live in rural Oregon. One of the reasons I don't do live streams very often is because I live in rural Oregon, and this is a really good camera, but the quirkiness here is pretty bad. And I've focused on the audio here because I know that for me, audio is always more important than video. I'm going to try and figure out what to do. You want me to close the window blind? It is almost down, actually. There. Is that better? I'm still a bit blown out. I do need Starlink, Adam, and hopefully we will get Starlink at some point in the future. I'll maybe even turn the light. Like normally when I do a proper review and an interview, I put my lights on in here and stuff. This is the weekend. This is informal. This is like when Linus did that video and he said, I'm thinking of retiring, and it was him with his headphones on and bad other stuff. If you stick around to the end and you want me to talk about the network, I will. But I just want to kind of drill down into these final few things because I'm really glad that there's 200 people, 300 I've seen at times watching this. So I want to just be, really honest with you. And I know the sun is coming through the blind here, so I'm sorry about that. All right. So where was I? Train of thought. All right. So a lot of the car companies now farm out their PR, and they end up farming that to PR companies who are looking for a very specific person to cover their vehicles. And very often they're looking for a specific type of person who would align with their ideal buyer. Now, why is this important? Well, I'm not an ideal buyer for a prestige high-end car. I've never been. I grew up on a dairy farm in rural East Anglia in the 1980s. And I don't believe in high-end luxury vehicles because I believe, well, I do, but I believe that for most people, most everyday people just want a car that works, that gets them to work and back, that is fuel efficient and reliable and offers everything they need to do. I'm not big into the gadgets and the doodads and the look new shiny because there are more important things that we need to solve. And so that means we very often don't get access to prestige brands because people view that I am not the kind of person who would review that car fairly because of those preconceptions. Now, what people don't understand is that I can look at a luxury car and go, this is a great luxury car. This offers blah, blah, blah. I know the market. I know the product. I know what some of the rival products will be. But at the end of the day, people are worried that I'm going to not give that car a fair review. Then you add, let's go back to Doug DeMuro, because I kind of lost that point there. Doug DeMuro has noted before that he struggles to get hold of review cars because people think that he's going to do dumb stuff with it, because that's what most automotive YouTubers do. And you'll notice that I'm using YouTuber rather than journalist at this point. He's a journalist. He's a columnist. Yes, he does stupid stuff and made a name for himself in some ways by doing stupid reviews. But he does very fair and honest reviews. That's kind of got that Top Gear feel to it sometimes. But companies are worried that he's going to do something stupid with the car because he wants the hits. And that's not really what he does, and it's not what we do. So we've got the car companies not wanting to give products to channels like us to test, or lend us products in this case. They don't give us cars. They lend you the car for a week and you drive it and then you say what you think. Then they're not worried. They're worried that you either don't understand the market segment or you're not a good representation of who they think their ideal buyer will be. Then you've got the issue of gender and age. I'm 41 and I'm a woman, and I'm a trans woman at that, which adds an extra kind of bit to it that a lot of people feel uncomfortable with. A lot of people feel uncomfortable with the fact that I am an out loud, proud person and a member of the GLBTQIA plus community. And people don't necessarily feel comfortable with that. And I'm totally okay with that. But at the same point, I hope that that is not kind of something that I hammer into every video. In fact, I try not to. Yeah, I'll talk about gender issues on Twitter and other things. Sorry, my camera. I'll talk about these things on Twitter, and I'm very kind of honest on my Twitter stream. And if you follow me at Transport Evolve, the Transport Evolve Twitter account, which, by the way, Kate and Erin and anybody else who works with us has access to. I don't think Morgan has access to it, but everybody else should have access to it. Should say, hey, Transport Evolve, because it might not be me that responds. Nikki the person, then you follow me at A Minor Journey. If you want to follow my fluffy animals, then you follow their character accounts. And I'm very clear about that that separation, but still people follow me on A Minor Journey expecting the same person that they see on screen always. And I think sometimes people get upset by what I say, and sometimes people have said to me, you said too much on Twitter, you've been too controversial. And again, that might also play a part into why we don't always get cars. Then there is the thing of networking, which I totally suck at. I'm not good at networking. I've never been good at networking. I kind of don't understand. And a lot of people say to me, are you autistic? Because I don't think I am. But a lot of people say, I'm very, very focused, very knowledgeable on a couple of subjects. And I've got a very inquisitive mind. But I also don't understand things like birthdays and Christmas and holidays. I would much rather people be nice to each other all the time than focus on, just be super nice to someone one day of the year when it's their birthday. No, I just need to be nice to everybody all the time. That is a better way to live. And so I don't really get the whole schmoozing and whining and dining that car companies do. I tend to be much more direct to the point. And I go, hey, we want to do this. This is what we're going to do. Tell me what you think. And a lot of car companies don't like that. I've got a couple of people that I work with in this industry who've come to me and said, yeah, you don't network enough. You're not nice to these PR people, so they then forget about you. So I'll talk to them, I'll send them an email, but I don't nag them. I kind of send them an email. Hey, we'd like to do this. And I might get a response. And sometimes I do. And if I do, great. And if I don't, well, I might wait a month or two and then I'll get back to them. And then I'm not insistent about it. So that doesn't help. But then there is another kind of angle to that, which is I'm not up for sponsored posts. We're not up for sponsored content. We have no interest working with a car company who wants us to say something's particular, who wants to view our content after we've made it. And if you've followed this channel a while, you'll know that we were once invited to an event in Japan by a Japanese automaker who basically what happened was their PR team, which again was an external team of kind of media savvy young people. God, I sound like an old woman now. Media savvy young people. They wanted to work with us on a reveal event for a new car, and they were going to fly us out first class. They were going to put us up in a nice hotel, and they wanted me to sign a contract saying that it was an influencer contract, saying, we're not going to cover any of your competitors for a certain amount of time, and talking about editorial control and stuff like that. And I refused. I said, no, look, either you let me go without signing the contract or we don't go. And I actually talked to the USA press team about this, and they were really embarrassed about it because they were unaware that somebody had reached out to me as an influencer, and they were like, no, you're a journalist. Don't worry. You don't have to sign anything. And the standard disclaimer, this company provided us with airfare, meals, lodging so that we can come and give you this report. We have never gone on an event where we've had to sign a contract saying you have editorial control, you do this or that. And even to the point when we go somewhere where there's a team on site. A couple of European car companies did this to me once. We went somewhere and we were filming, and they said, oh, we've got a camera crew with us, so you can just do your pieces to camera and then we'll edit it down for you and send you the finished thing. And I'm like, no, you're gonna give me the rushes. I have a hard drive in my bag, in my carry-on. I'll go talk to a camera team and I will download the rushes from their memory cards, and I will, thank you, I will do all of the editing. And they were like, well, editing's hard and audio is hard and they can make it sound good. And I'm like, nope. I will download that freaking B-roll and A-roll that we have from this event, from your cameras onto my hard drive, and then we will do the thing. And now you know why when we go and do things now, we take a couple of flight cases. We have 2 cameras. One is a backup. We have 4 GoPros. We have a radio mic for the lav, which goes on my, my butt pocket. We have all of that. And the reason we do that is so that we have complete editorial control over the process. And a lot of companies are starting to react negatively to that. Tesla, of course, is at the top of the list. If you don't say something nice about Tesla, if you are critical of Tesla, you are on the blacklist. And I've spoken to several people who've not been able to confirm it 100%, but said, yeah, there are several companies that are not welcome at Tesla events. It's fair to say you're there, because we had this event where I asked Elon Musk something. And now a lot of people watching this, and a lot of people who watch the channel, come back and go, well, you shouldn't have been nasty about Elon, or you're just bitter that Elon is, that you asked Elon a question, he got angry with you, and now you're no longer being nice about Tesla. And like, no, we do give praise to Tesla when praise is due, and we give praise to other companies when it's due, but we also give criticism. And now there is a handful of companies, literally a handful of car companies, where this is still the case, where we can reach out and go, hey, we need a press release on this. Do you have a statement? There is a negative news story involving you. We have to cover it. Can you tell us what your official statement is? That happened recently with General Motors. With regard to the Bolt fires, I reached out to their PR team. I'm like, hey, Hope you're well. Hope your family's okay. Bit of a shitstorm you've got going here. I need a statement and I need to cover it. So I need to know what's happening. And that's what they did. They got back to me and they said, yeah, you're just doing your job. There you go. And I said, yeah, I am just doing my job. But I want to appreciate you and thank you for sending me that information. Because in the past, you know, I've talked to companies who don't respond. Just imagine that. They don't respond either because they don't view you as legitimate, or they think that you're going to give them more negative press by covering that negative story. So let's draw a little line under that. Shut up, Sally. That's my rooster, in case you didn't know. We have a rooster. His name is Sally. And my wife is calling the chickens, apparently. So, where was I? Oh, right. So we're back to this Nvidia thing. So the crux of the issue is Nvidia thinks that this person is not going to be fair. Or rather, Nvidia thinks that this person is not going to say what Nvidia wants them to say. And therefore, they're going to turn off access to. And this is what I'm seeing in the EV world. There are companies, when a company says, sorry, we don't have a car, I believe them. And that's fine. When they say, sorry, there isn't a car, and then somebody 10 miles down the road has access to a vehicle, and I don't want to name and shame those people because I feel bad. I don't want to make them feel like I'm cross with them because I'm not. They're doing their job just as much as we are. But when that happens, it tells you there's something else going on. Something else. And sometimes it can be the case of we ask too many questions. We are too technical. We ask the questions that companies don't want to be asked. Like, yeah, is your battery liquid thermal cooled? What's the charge rate? What's the charge curve look like? We ask the tough questions and then they don't want to answer it. Now, there's also a little bit of gender bias there as well. Don't see this in Europe, thankfully, but we see it in America, which is why I said what I said earlier about sometimes I regret from a business point of view. We have... I have met people who feel uncomfortable with women asking technical questions because they believe that we don't understand what we're talking about. And I know Kate's had that too. So that can sometimes be a problem. And that prevents us from having access to the teams and being honest. Now, the series that we're doing is starting to get traction. The series where we sit down and we chat with people like Peter Rawlinson, like the guy, Jeremy Short, engineer of the Bolt. We've got a couple more that we're setting up. We've managed to get someone from Cadillac, and we've started. I think we're going to get someone from the Hummer EV project. We can actually just kind of drill down and start asking them tougher questions. We're going to try and do the same. We did the same thing with Mark Hanchett from Atlas. Well, that was a really honest review where we literally say, okay, we're going to hit record now. We're going to have a recording session. We're going to chat about this vehicle. If the connection drops, which it does here in rural Oregon, we stop and we start the recording again. We pick up where we left off. And all of the guests know if they say something by accident that they realize after they've said it is, yeah, sorry, that shouldn't be public. Yeah, they do have the ability to say, yeah, actually, that's not public yet. Can you not put that bit in? That's happened to us once, and I can't remember which company it was, but they said something that they then went, oh, crap. Yeah, we've not announced that yet. Can you hold on to that? Or can you not release this video until this date? Or can you do that? And we're accommodating in that regard. So, you know, on your Twitter, a female mechanic for a Formula 1 team gets looked over if she has a man with her if she goes to the garage. Yeah. Yeah, someone's saying we should have the website, and we are trying to work on the website, which I know. And I know I keep going on about it. If you'd like me to give you the story on that, I'm more than willing to do that, just so that you know. I think I've covered all the bases I want to cover, but that's why we don't get access to cars as much. Sometimes because companies don't want to give it to us because they're worried about what we're going to say, which is the same thing with an Nvidia situation. Sometimes because I've got the wrong bits and I'm on the wrong size. And sometimes it's for some other reason as well. Someone says, did the video freeze or is it just me? I don't believe the video is frozen. My video is still working, so I hope it's just you. We're going to tie this up in a second anyway, because it's lunchtime and I'm going to go and get some lunch. Charlie is right about the website and we're working on that. But the challenge right now is that we are working flat out on everything else. Transport Evolved has actually grown this year. And don't worry, we're going to do a video talking about how much not how much we've earned, but where the income for the Transport Evolved company comes from. So Transport Evolved LLC is a company. And so we'll do a video about where we get our income from. Our income has actually grown this year, thanks to you guys. Sorry, I'm just asking this question. I am so okay. So someone will I think Will is feeling a little bit more nervous about broaching this. So I'm just going to come out and say it. Yes, I am trans. So I was assigned male at birth. I am trans. I am also gay. I'm queer. So I am a lesbian. I am married to another woman. So that is totally okay, and that is just who I am. I transitioned in my very and so I've now lived like this for the majority of my life. No more said. Yeah, so that's pretty much. Don't feel bad about asking that question. All right, so where was I? All right, yeah, the website. So we got hacked in 2018 when we had said something negative about Elon Musk, and somebody sent me a message going, you should stop being mean about Elon. I know your passwords. And I was like, yeah, right, you do. We use a password manager. It's all good. Don't fret it. What happened was a couple of years ago, before we used our password manager, I used the same password for most things. And my password was leaked, as many other passwords were online, and that password was leaked associated with one of my email addresses, and it was a password that I had used way back in, like, we're talking the late 90s, early 2000s. I'd used that password, which is terrible. That password had been leaked. I had then realized how stupid it was to have the same password for everything, and I'd started using a password manager. I knew it was stupid intellectually a long time before that, but I didn't actually start using a password manager until about 7 years ago. So, password manager, now everything is completely hashed and unique, and I don't have access to any of the original passwords. I just have a very long, complicated master password that only I know. So, somebody had found my email address on that list, realized it was me because of the association with the email to the company, and then had sat there trying to get into my company website. They hadn't got into the Transport Evolved server. We had lots of hacking attempts, but no one actually got into it. What they did, though, was they found a back door that I'd left open so that I could access it. And this is totally my fault. They had found a back door into my server, not the web server, but into the media server that's sitting in over there in the closet, in the server closet. They found a backdoor into that. And I had lazily not bothered to use a secure password for that. I used that password that I used years and years ago to gain access because it was quick and easy for me to enter. And I thought, well, no one's actually going to access that from outside the network apart from me. And I thought a custom port and everything else was keeping me safe. They got in. Once they got into that server, there was a folder on that server. It's not there anymore. There was a folder on that server that said, important, do not delete, website access or something, and it included all of the certificates to access our company website. So that person just copied those. They threw a load of files around, managed to delete some files for an advert that we were working on for a client. It was our first paying client. We had an advert, and I remember it was the second day of shooting for that advert, and I realized that someone had gone in and moved and deleted files from our server that day, video files, and I felt sick that day. And so at that point, they'd got into my personal server, they'd thrown stuff around and left, a Elon Musk is king kind of comment somewhere in a text file, and had thrown a lot of stuff around. To this day, there are some reviews. One of them was the Kia Niro review that we had not been able to produce because that person had gone in and hidden files and moved files around and basically tried to bring the business down. They didn't succeed, that server, because we had backups. They managed to delete some because it was a backup in progress when they did the deleting, so some of the files were gone forever. But we have a backup server. We have the main server. We have higher security now. But they still got into our website and they deleted some files. They screwed up the WordPress installation, and we haven't had a chance to fix it because making content every day, I don't know about if you knew this, but we put out 7 videos a week. And that takes a couple of hours for me to write the script. If I have to research it first, it takes even longer. Then we have to film. And I film 2 versions of the video, one with a tight shot, one with a wider shot. We have to upload it. We have to, uploading the videos takes a couple of hours, and all of that other stuff. Now, we do have a Transport Evolved server. It's hidden. The website is back. It's hidden. It doesn't have any style. We haven't been able to recover any of those old, some of the old images and stuff. They're not associating for some reason. We're trying to bring that back, but it is kind of at the bottom of the list of priorities. And I would love to have someone come and help us do it. But right now we're focusing on just getting stuff out the door. So that is why our Transport Evolved website has not been so good lately. However, it's on the list. Right now we're working for a third-party client. I have a friend who I work for. I have a friend who I am doing some work for at the moment, who is in an associated industry. Whenever we mention them, we have mentioned them on the channel before. When we mention them, we always say we have worked with this company in the past, but we do not. I should be really clear. We do not work with car companies. We do not have. We do not do any work for car companies. The exception to that is if we do a cover, if we make a video about something, like we did a video of Lucid, we did that interview with Lucid, and after we did that, I actually reached out to their PR team and went, hey, if you would like a copy of this video free, here it is. Download it. Here's the original version. You do not have to pay us for this. We do that a couple of times. We don't work for car companies. So this client that we're working with at the moment is not a car company. They are in a connected industry, and we're very clear when we do that. But that extra money is helping us, it's allowed us to upgrade things like this microphone, and it means that we will be upgrading to other things in the future, like a better network system. So Oddbjorn, I think, yes, I think that is something that we had thought about doing, and we're getting there. But that is why we are where we're at. And I just physically do not have any more time in the day to do stuff. Kate Walton Elliott, while she produces content for us, it's not her day job. She voluntarily sends me videos in her spare time. I have sent her a production setup. So she has a little production setup up there, some of which she's built herself, some of which I've sent up there. Erin is working full-time on this project at the moment for this client. She's doing a load of animation work, and she's working full-time. She is now full-time as of last month, but officially it's January, she's going to be full-time, which is possible because of you guys. And finally, Morgan is a writer who comes in and he writes for us, and we pay him per article or per script, and he writes for us and we revise it and we film it. But other than that, everything is me. So Erin's doing a lot of the animation. She does the credits. She's done all of the merch. She's done all of the thumbnails until fairly recently when I started taking over, because she was so hammered with this other project. So that's so there we go. Oddbjorn Gebhardt. Did I say that right? That is such an awesome name. Oddbjorn Gebhardt. Or is it Geshardt? I don't know. I'm not going to try and second guess your name. That would be too a thing. Someone saying they love my honesty. I do try and be honest about this. And I know we've kind of gone from talking about Nvidia car, some of that Nvidia story is something that I see myself on this channel. But obviously I wanted to kind of discuss why we don't get vehicles. And I know a lot of people are frustrated that we are not getting cars. We haven't been invited to the Volkswagen events. And this is not for want of trying. We do email them and we do say, hey, we'd like to come. Or do you have a space? Can you put us on the press list? And sometimes it's just ignored. And that's not... But I think it would also be thoroughly unprofessional of me to not cover those companies because they haven't given me access. I still have to cover them. It just takes me a little bit longer. Now, finally, there is someone who's got a Polestar 2 who's offered me a Polestar to review in Portland. We also have an Aptera, an Akimoto to review, and somebody else offered a Model Y to review. So we're going to try and do that soon. We're going to try and make that happen. But at the moment, because I'm loath to do anything, like that trip last week to California, that taught me a lot. We got halfway to California and then we got a phone call saying, yeah, no, we're not going to see that happen because persons are sick. So we turned around and came home. And we do work from home. We do follow CDC guidelines. We always wear masks, and we're out and we're filming with the people who are not in part of my immediate family. When I'm off site to the house, I always have a mask. Somebody actually who watches the channel stopped me the other day and we had a lovely chat. We all had masks on. So there we go. Any update on the Larda conversion? The Larda Niva is being driven around by Gav right now as a petrol car or gasoline car. He is saving up the pennies to convert to electric. It is happening. In similar vein, an update. The Honda is, we've taken the seats out. I haven't made another video on that, partly because our Wi-Fi sucks. And those who've tried to watch me do an outdoor stream will know that Wi-Fi is not great, and we have fixed that thanks to you guys. So yesterday I purchased a significant amount of money. I put a significant amount of money on a new Ubiquiti network system. And the reason we went with Ubiquiti is because it's got a fairly good security. It's professional equipment. We are putting a mesh network throughout the house and throughout the property. So we will have, hopefully, mesh networking out in the garage, out in the yard, and I will be able to stream from the internet because we've got a PoE point in the chicken coop. We're now totally off. I do apologize if you're watching this video at this point. We're now totally off piste, but we have a PoE access point in the chicken coop because we have a computer in the chicken coop. We have a little Raspberry Pi with a camera for the chickens. It's not a photo booth. It's just so we can keep an eye on the coop to make sure that predators aren't getting the chickens. So we have that out there. So if you haven't followed Transport Evolved Take 2, go follow that now, because that's the channel we're going to be doing more of that stuff on. We're going to be putting out some tests where I am going to install the Ubiquiti system. We've got 4 access points, where I think 3 access points and an extender. So 2 inside and 2 outside. Why don't we stream the chicken coop video just in terms of content? Do you have a wish list? I mean, generally at the moment we're doing pretty well. I would love to hear about the Unify systems. Actually, I would like to pick someone's brain about figuring out. We've got to do drop cables through the ceiling, which I'm not entirely looking forward to. I've done flood. We have a flood, if you can see. So there are 8 on that wall, and there are 4 on that wall and 4 on that wall. So 8 in total. Every room has Ethernet drop as patch bays. We put those in when we bought the house, and I have flood wired from our server room all the way up to the chicken coop, which was fun. And yes, we're going to have a hack-proof router. It means we're going to have VPNs for the team. So we can do that. And chicken coop, yeah, I do have a personal channel too, but I haven't been able to make content on it lately because I've been so freaking busy on this channel. Honestly, we need to double our income to the point where I can hire a video editor. As I say, I don't want to give all of my financials away. We had a 20% increase in revenue this year, which blows my mind away, thanks to you guys. And everything of that, except maybe a 1 or 2%, went to the company growing. I pay myself below minimum wage. If you consider the number of hours I do, I pay myself very much below minimum wage. But anybody I pay far higher than minimum wage. So there you go. Anyway, that is the end of it. I know the viewer count's dropping off, so thank you for joining me. If you want me to do more Take 2 videos, let me know. We're going to be doing some more stuff on there'll be some other video questions that will be coming away in the next couple of weeks. Obviously, we're preparing for the holidays, and I am going to take some time off. December has been a record for us in terms of viewer count and revenue. If it continues this way, it will be a mind-blowing record breaker. I could probably not make any more content for the rest of the month and still have an average month at the end of it. So we'll see what we can do. Anyway, thanks for joining me. Keep evolving.